So we're going to get started this morning. You'll notice I have a couple of things in front of me. I've got a blanket and I'm rolling up a strap. Now, if you don't have a blanket, you can use a towel. And if you don't have a strap, you can use a belt or a longer towel. Both those things will be perfect for today's practice. And we're actually going to start by standing up. So our focus today is going to be on kind of opening up the back body, opening up the backs of the legs, the backs of the hips. And what I'd like you to do is take your feet nice and wide, so wider than your shoulders, wider than your hips. And if you'd like, you can take your hands to your hips. And take a nice soft bend in your knees just for a moment. And you're going to take an inhale. And on your exhale, go ahead and hinge forward at your pelvis. So keeping your back kind of flat. And as you come down to maybe fingertips on the earth, if you feel like you need blocks or books to bring the earth up to you, feel free to do that. But then just start to slowly shift your hips left and right, just kind of bending and straightening each knee. So here you're just kind of starting to get into a little bit of the hamstrings. Now, I have some really, really tight hamstrings right now. I did a really big and hard bike ride the other day that has just wrecked the backs of my legs. And I've been just working through all this soreness for the last 2 or 3 days. And, it's always a little worse in the morning, or it's always a little worse before we start to move. So we're just going to start with some gentle movement here. So just continue to shift those hips left and right. And if you want to keep your knees deeply bent, you can. But if it starts to feel like things are starting to loosen up, you can start to keep one leg straight as you bend the other. So as I bend over towards the right, I'm keeping my left knee straight. And then as I bend over to the left, I'm keeping my right knee straight. And I'm thinking about sending my pelvis back towards the wall behind me. So we'll do 2 more of those. And then come to center and maybe just walk your feet slightly wider. So your chest will move a little bit closer to the earth. Not too terribly close, but just a little bit, so that maybe your hands can come down onto the ground in a more flat way. And then from here, go ahead and walk your hands out in front of your face, in front of your shoulders, so that your hands are pretty much directly right underneath your shoulders. And then we're just going to do a really little cat-cow here. So rounding through the spine, letting the head drop, and then inhaling to lift the head, drag the heart slightly forward. Rounding and lifting. And this isn't going to be a big movement. You're not going to really feel it down into your low back, but you'll feel it up into your upper back. Drag those palms towards your feet. And then from here, go ahead and come back to center. And all you're going to do is start to shift your chest forward and shift your chest back. So almost like you're kind of making a line in between your hands, moving forward and back and forward and back and forward and back and forward and back. And then just go ahead and take your hands back underneath your chest, reach over, find that blanket or that towel, and all you're going to do is come down however you'd like, just to sit. And I'm going to sit on my blanket today, like usual. But if you like a little support underneath your pelvis, feel free to kind of adjust things so that you can get that lift that you need. I'm going to take my right shin in front of my left. And here, I'm going to take my left hand to my right thigh. Bend your left elbow, take your left hand behind your head, and you're going to do a little bit of a dip with that left shoulder. Now, for me this morning, things are a little creaky, I'm a little stiff, I'm a little sore. So I'm not going to make huge movements here, but just dipping that left shoulder and then coming back up and dip and lift. Just kind of bringing a little bit of mobility, pumping a little bit of blood by sort of both compressing and then lengthening. And we'll do 2 more of those. So here's 1. And here's 2. And then go ahead and take that right hand down next to your right hip. And you're just going to twist over towards the right side. Gaze over that right shoulder. And take a couple breaths. And then come back to center. And you're just going to switch the cross of your feet. So if your right foot's in front, you're going to take your left foot in front. If you're just stacking the legs, maybe just cross your legs in an opposite way. That feels a little funny. And then you're going to take your right hand over to your left knee and take your left hand behind your head, elbow points towards the sky. From here, just go ahead and dip that right shoulder down towards that right knee. And as you dip, see if you can really reach up through that left elbow. And just really let that left elbow kind of reach towards the sky. And we'll do 2 more. And then come back to center, and you're just going to take that left hand down behind your hip and gaze back over your left shoulder. Take a nice deep breath. And then come around back to the front. Go ahead and plant that left foot on the mat. And if you need to kind of adjust where you are sitting on that blanket, feel free to. And what I'd like you to do is walk that left foot out just a little bit and see if you can get kind of more the top of your right shin and right foot to the mat. You're going to take your right hand way off towards the right side of your mat. And all we're going to do is going to keep our left hand on our thigh. And you're going to press down and lift up so that you come into sort of a 90-90 position on your right knee. And then go ahead and reach that left arm up overhead, fingertips out long. Take a nice deep breath. See if you can feel the stretch from the upper part of your pelvis, right along the rib cage, out through the fingertips. And then exhale and come back down. And what I'd like you to do is go ahead and take the back of your left arm and reach it around the front of your left knee. And then maybe just wrap that hand around so that it comes to grab the blanket beneath you just for a second. So kind of doing a little counterbalance here. And then we'll do that same move 2 more times. So go ahead and unwind. You're going to just take that right hand way far out towards the top of your mat. Take your left hand to your left thigh, press down, lift your hips, come into sort of this 90-90 shape. So you've got about a 90-degree shape on the right knee, about a 90-degree shape on the left, and then you're just going to reach that left arm up and overhead. Now, if you'd like, you can take that left leg out long, come into a supported side plank, or you can continue to keep that left foot on the mat and that left knee bent. Now for me, I'm liking the left knee bent. It just feels a little bit more like an inner groin stretch for me. So I'm going to leave it there. And then exhale, sink the hips back down. Wrap that left arm around the outside of that left shin. Maybe grab hold of that blanket underneath your pelvis. Let your chest come forward, kind of settle down in between the legs. And take a couple of breaths. So a little bit of shoulder opening as well as we kind of move into the legs, into the hips. Go ahead and unwind, sit back up. Last time, take that right hand way off to the top of your mat. Press down to the top of that right shin, lift your hips, press the pelvis towards the sky. You can reach that top arm up if you like. And then if you feel it, reach that fingertips out up towards the top of the mat. And see if you can kind of open that chest towards the sky. Make sure you're still breathing. And then exhale, sink those hips down, wrap that left back of the arm around the front of the shin, grab hold of that blanket, let your chest kind of fall forward. If you're not able to reach around to grab the blanket, you can always just place the hand on the floor next to your left foot. And then go ahead and come back up And for a moment, just make a stop in a regular sit, however you'd like to sit, and kind of notice the difference between left and right. Like I feel a lot of warmth on my left side. I feel a lot more openness into the interior line of my left leg, as well as the outer line of my left hip. So we're just going to switch that. So you're going to take that right foot, plant it down on the mat, draw that left heel in towards your groin, and see if you can get sort of more of the top of the foot and the top of the shin on the mat. Go ahead and kind of creepy crawl that right foot out. You can turn your toes out or in, just depending on how the shape of your pelvis and how this all feels. So feel free to kind of play with the exact positioning of your body. Take your left hand way off to the top of your mat or towards the opposite end of your mat. And then you're going to take your right hand, press into your right thigh, press your hips up and off that blanket and come into sort of this really awkward, really strange 90-90 shape. And you're going to reach that right arm up. And then if you feel like it, reach those fingertips up over your head towards the top of your mat. And really feel the stretch along the side body. And then go ahead and sit. Shift the hips back. You're going to take the back of that right arm around the front of that right shin, and maybe just place that right hand next to the right foot on the outside. If you need to kind of walk that shin in a little bit, you can. And just let that chest kind of move forward. So if you want to take your left hand to your left thigh to provide a little support, you can. Take a couple of breaths. Use the back of that right arm to press into that right kind of knee, shin. It'll press that space back. So you're stretching through the inner groin. So we've got 2 more of those. Go ahead and unwind. Take that left hand out towards the very end of your mat. Take your right hand to your right thigh, and you can again turn your toes in, out, sideways, however you'd like. Press yourself down into that left shin and lift the hips up. So again, kind of that 90-90-ish shape. If you want to take that right leg out long and come into a more of a supported side plank, you're welcome to. But I'm actually liking this kind of stretch, so I'm going to keep my right foot on the floor. Reach the right arm up. And then on your exhale, reach that right arm out over your ear. And find that stretch along that right side body. And then exhale, come back down. Sink the hips back. Wrap that right upper arm around the front of that shin. Maybe grab back for that blanket. Let the pelvis sink back and sink the chest forward. And we'll do one more. Go ahead and unwind. Take that left hand once again way out to the side. Adjust sort of the spacing of your feet if you need to. Press down into that right thigh. Press yourself up onto that left knee and reach that right arm towards the sky. Now, if you feel like that left hand is too far behind you or needs to be adjusted, feel free to just make whatever adjustment you need. And then reach the fingertips up and overhead and let that right side open up. Make sure you're still breathing. Make sure you're still opening that chest towards the sky. And then exhale, sink the hips back down. Wrap that forearm around that right knee. Let the chest sink. And then go ahead and come on back to sit. And here, go ahead and slide that blanket out from under you. And we're going to continue to kind of use it as a prop, but we won't be sitting on it as much. So you can kind of keep it close. Take your right knee and bend it so that your right foot comes in towards your groin. Take your left leg out long. And here, just for a second, like give it a nice little bounce. So kind of like you're giving it almost a percussive massage, right? Using the ground, just kind of bouncing that leg. And if you feel like the backs of your hamstrings are really tight, like mine, what I'd like you to do is, if you feel it even in this phase, right? Where you're like, back of my knee could use a little lift. You're just gonna take your blanket and kind of make a nice flat blanket roll that you're just gonna slide underneath that knee so that it comes right directly underneath the joint. And you can adjust it as high or as low as you'd like. Find a place that feels kind of supported, where you don't feel like you're hyperextending the knee, but you don't feel like you're not getting a stretch. So I kind of have to actually back mine off a little bit. And then you're gonna go ahead and just take your strap or your belt or your spare towel. And all we're gonna do is just lean forward and wrap that strap around the ball mound of that foot. So right beneath the toes. And then you're gonna take that strap in your left hand and you're just gonna slide your hand down towards your ankle, however you'd like. And then all you're gonna do is just start to bend that left elbow so that you are actually doing a similar shape to what we just did, where we're stretching into the side body, not so much into the leg right now, but we're gonna get there. So go ahead and just bend that left elbow and start to pull that left ear towards your left knee. And I'm just kind of keeping my right hand resting lightly on my right thigh. That's so I remember to let my right pelvis, the right side of my pelvis, just drop and settle in. And take a couple breaths here. Really breathing down, especially into the space that's like stretching a lot, which is this whole top of the pelvis, low back, kind of outer hip. And then from here, go ahead and lift the chest back up to center. Turn your chest towards the top of that left foot and take the strap into your right hand. And you're going to take a deep breath and get a nice long spine. And if you have a strap or a towel that you can kind of wrap around your hands, you can do that. And then all you're going to do is start to gently pull the center of your chest towards the top of your left foot. And again, letting that right leg, that right pelvis, just sink towards the mat. If you need to, you can I like to take a grip over the top of my straps and kind of twist my right shoulder more towards the left so that I'm getting a little bit more of a rotation in my upper body. And see if you can just take a deep breath. And on your exhale, see if you can maybe drop your chest a little bit closer to that left leg. So almost like a wave going through your system. And then slowly just start to walk yourself back up. And you're going to unhook that strap. Just place it off to the side for a second. Bend your left knee if you need to. Grab a hold of the back of the thigh and kind of help it in. And then come back to just sit. Get a nice long spine for a second. Maybe take a moment to kind of sway on that spine. And then we're just going to switch sides. So if you use the blanket on the first side, I would say use the blanket on the second side. Just kind of slide it over. And make whatever kind of adjustments you might need under that right knee. Take your left foot in towards your midline. And for me, even just like sitting in this shape is, it's a lot right now. So if you're feeling that, just kind of be where you are and let the muscles kind of release a little bit and grab your strap. And you're just gonna lean forward and catch the ball mound of that foot, that right foot in the strap. And you're gonna take your left hand down the strap towards your ankle. So the palm is faced up. When you bend your elbow will move down towards your right knee. And all you're gonna do is, and you can adjust sort of the angle of your right leg if you wanna like move it more in or move it more out, just depending on how kind of flexible you're feeling right now or what your body is dealing with. Go ahead and just start to tug on that strap, bend the right elbow. Keep that chest open towards the front of the room. And just gently kind of tug. Keep your left hand on your left thigh to just remember, as a physical reminder, to drop that left hip. It's funny, we don't do a lot of this kind of movement or this kind of stretching in our, daily lives. We don't think about sort of the side to side movement and the way that it's all kind of integrated into the rest of our system. Low backs, our legs, even up into our shoulders and necks. It's all really connected, but sometimes we forget, like, oh yeah, we have side bodies that need to be stretched too. And take a few breaths. Make sure you're keeping that chest open. You're not kind of collapsing down towards that knee. And then from here, go ahead and come back up through center. And you're going to take both hands to that strap. Maybe separate the strap if you want. For a second, give it a little tug. Maybe press the ball mound into that strap. Maybe your foot comes off the mat like mine does. And then let that foot go down. And all you're going to do is start to walk your hands down the strap and pull your chest towards your right knee. Now, a lot of times, I'll do this without the blanket beneath my knee. It works for me when I'm not feeling nearly so tight, but this is actually really just a nice reminder for me not to go too far. So if it feels good, you can take your right hand off to the right side and maybe twist your chest a little bit more towards that top of the right foot. And take a deep inhale, and on your exhale, sigh out and let the chest move forward. Do that once again, in and then out. And then in and then out. And then slowly, slowly, slowly just start to bring the chest back up. You can unhook your foot and you're going to just bend that right knee in, come back to sit. And for a moment, take a little rock on the low back. You may notice sort of a flood of warmth, a flood of sensation into the low back. That's kind of what I'm feeling right now. And if you want to rock, you can rock. If you feel like you need a little movement, or if you feel like you want to take both legs out long and just kind of flex and bend. I'm actually going to do that on this side. Just kind of flex and bend the knee on the right side. Just a little percussive. If you want to just bounce the leg, slide that blanket out from underneath it, just bounce for a second. Get those muscles to kind of like, hey, chill out, muscles. Sometimes they need a reminder. It's time to relax. And then go ahead and come back to center. And take the soles of your feet together. You're going to take that same blanket roll and unroll it just a little bit and then just kind of roll it up tight. So you're going to take it sort of long size and make a nice long blanket roll with it. And then from here, what I'd like you to do is just pick up the outer edges of your feet and place them on top of the blanket. And then you're going to wrap the tails underneath so that you have kind of like a little circular nest for your feet. Now this will lift your feet a bit higher off the ground, which means that you may not have as much flexibility, which is totally okay. If you want a little support for your knees, if you have a strap, this in particular, or belts, this is going to work. If you have a towel that you're using, this is a little bit trickier, but make a big loop with that strap. You're going to pass it over your shoulders so that it comes behind your back, and then just kind of loop the outer knees into it. So you've got a nice little kind of almost like a seat that you can lean back into. So take a couple of breaths. If you'd like, you can just let your hands kind of rest on your knees. And I'm using the strap today just because I want to feel a little bit of support. I can do this without needing it, but this actually feels pretty nice right now. So just take a few moments here, take a few breaths. Just let everything kind of settle down. Let all the muscles kind of rebound. Let them just kind of take up the shape that they're trying to wake up into. If you're like me, it's like, oh yeah, body's like, hey, how we doing today? And then once you've taken a few moments here, you can reach to the outside edges of your legs and just lift them up so that you take the tension out of the belt. Slide that belt off and place it off to the side. You can actually keep that loop in it if you like. And then all we're going to do is just continue to close those legs, slide the blanket out from underneath the feet, and come back into a sit just for a second. And if you'd like, start to bring your chest forward and maybe take your hands to the mat and just kind of sweep the chest left to right for a second. So stretching into the low back now. And if you have one way that you always cross your legs, see if you can cross them the opposite way. So if you're, in my case, my right leg is on top, I'm going to switch that so that my left leg is on top. And then do that same kind of sweeping of the chest left and right. And then what I'd like you to do is unroll that blanket just a little bit. And you're going to come back into just a normal blanket fold to sit on for a second at the end of your mat. So totally yogi's choice here. I'm actually going to, instead of doing my normal like seated fold, which is usually like a doubled over fold, I'm going to actually just make my blanket a little bit flatter, and so that my hips aren't so lifted up. And then I'm going to turn around here so that my back comes to that blanket, scooch up on top of it, take my strap so it's within my reach, and take both legs out long. And just for a moment, take your hands back behind your hips, bounce those legs, just kind of let a little bit of movement come into them. I have one of those massage devices, I guess, and was using it on my legs last night, and I was like, I can't believe how sore I am. So like even a little bit of that like percussive movement is like, So if you still have that loop in your strap, you can keep it or you can unwind it. We're just going to use the strap to kind of come into a Dandasana. Now, if you don't like the support of the blanket beneath your pelvis, don't worry about it. You can pull it out. If you like it, keep it there. You can also optionally place the blanket underneath your knees if you feel like your knees are super hyperextended. Now, make sure that blanket is not causing that hyperextension, meaning like don't be so high that, you know, your knees are bending backwards. It's all about sort of subtlety when you're working with props. You're going to take your strap, wrap it around both feet down at the end of the mat, and come on up to a nice long spine. So if you need to like kind of lean back because you have tight hamstrings like I do, lean back. But then slowly start to bend your elbows and see if you can draw your chest more towards the tops of your feet. So press down into the belt as you're drawing your chest forward. It's almost like you're stepping on the gas, right? Like you're kind of pressing into the place where an accelerator pedal might sit underneath your feet. And just slowly using your arms, using the strength of your upper body to kind of tug the chest more towards the earth. And then if you get to a place where you're like, oh yeah, okay, I feel the stretch, but I want a little bit of like movement in it, just shift your pelvis left and right. You're just kind of doing a little rock. For me, there's a lot of value to be had in not remaining static in a lot of these poses. Like I can find a little bit more release in a lot of things, or a little bit more ease in them if I add a little bit of a rocking movement. So that's actually why we're doing this today. I'm gonna take a couple more seconds here, just either rocking or holding still and seeing if you can tug that chest more towards the tops of your feet. And then go ahead and release, come back up to sit. The goal here isn't to go, you know, super duper far and just be like completely folded over, unless that's something that you can do. unless that's in your practice. For me, it's not. So go ahead and place your strap off to the side, and I'm gonna take this blanket out from underneath. If you want to use it as a pillow, we are going to come down onto our backs next. So feel free to kind of keep it close or turn it into a pillow. And go ahead and come down onto your back. You may notice that as you come down onto your back after a lot of that stretching, your spine kind of does this like popping, unfurling. It feels pretty good. If not, go ahead and plant both feet on the mat. If you want to take your hands up behind your head, you're welcome to. And then just do a little bit of slight windshield wiper movement with your knees, just dropping them left and right. Just kind of letting the low back release, letting that pelvis kind of drop a little bit. And then come back to center. And all you're going to do is, there's two ways to do this next move. So if you have your strap or your towel, you can use it. And all you're going to do is just wrap it around the back of your left thigh. So I like to wrap it right around sort of that belly of the hamstring, right in here. Alternatively, you can just use the backs, use your hands and interlace your hands behind the back of your left leg. Now, if you happen to be looking at your screen, you'll notice that my left leg is nowhere near straight. So I'm going to use my strap today so that I can kind of bring it to or towards straight. And all you're going to do is just hold on to that strap so you're supporting that left leg. Your right knee can be bent, or you can take that right leg out long, just depending on how you're feeling. Today I'm going to keep my right leg bent. And then from here, all we're going to do is do a little bit of like what they call flossing the nerve. So you're going to just flex the foot and drop the heel down towards your left sit bone. And then point your toe and kick upward. So you're keeping the knee relatively flat, like straight and above the hip, but you're just bending and straightening the knee. So almost like you're trying to like lead with the heel on the way down and kick a soccer ball on the way up. So just kind of moving through this point and flex movement. And this helps. If you get sciatica, this can be a really helpful move to do because it essentially moves the nerve around in the muscles. It's called flossing the nerve, and it will tend to help kind of release some of the tension. So we'll just do 2 more of those before we switch it out. And then once you've done that second one, go ahead and come back up to the top. And this time we're going to keep our toe pointed, and you're going to drag the toe down. So bending the left knee towards and drawing the left heel towards the left butt cheek. And then you're going to flex and move it up. So point to move down and flex to move up. And, you know, if you're using the strap or if you've changed to using your hands, feel free to kind of play with it. You know, the goal is at the top to get to or towards straight with your leg. You may have to allow the thigh to move down and away from the shoulders if that's the case. So flexing on the way up because I just managed to reverse it, and then pointing on the way down. And we'll do 2 more. And then from here, go ahead and release. Let that left foot come down next to your right. Take a moment, let your knees knock together. Take your hands to your belly. Maybe close your eyes. And just kind of notice the warmth or the sensation between the left and the right leg. and then walk your feet back in towards your midline, and we're going to switch sides. So if you started with your left, you're going to go to your right. Again, totally yogi's choice. You can either use your hands interlaced behind that right thigh. As you can see, my leg is not going to go to straight today. This is as far as it's going to go. So I'm going to start with the belt. And you can always use a towel for this as well. So once you get this kind of set up, you can either take that left leg out long, let it come down to the mat and do the same move, or you can keep that left knee bent. For me today, I'm keeping my left knee bent. It helps kind of make my low back feel a little better. And then we're going to start by dragging that left heel down, so flexing on the way down and pointing on the way up. So you're just bending and straightening that right leg. But as you go down, you're flexing your toes, and as you come up, you're pointing your toes. You may feel the stretch into the front of the ankle as you point on the way up. I certainly do. Just kind of depends on what's going on in your body today. So imagine like you're drawing a line with your heel as you drag down. So we'll do 2 more of those. And then you're going to switch. So you're going to keep that point, and you're going to bend the knee towards the so that your heel comes towards your pelvis, and then you're going to flex on the way up. So point on the way down and flex on the way up. And the pointing and flexing just kind of gives a little bit of coordination, a little bit of dynamic stretching, a little bit of dynamic movement, and changes the shape of the muscles as you stretch. So if you've ever done a lot of PT, you may have heard of active resistance therapy, or ART. This is kind of based on that. Your muscles are actively resisting, right, the shape, but at the same time getting a nice release. We'll do 2 more. So pointing on the way down, flexing on the way up, pointing on the way down, flexing on the way up. And then go ahead and release that right leg. You can unwind that strap if you'd like, and take your knees back together. Let the feet go wide. Take a moment. And then from here, what I'd like you to do is we're going to come into a little bit of this we're going to start by opening up the IT bands and move into a little bit more of like deep groin, deep front body movement. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and take your feet to the wide edges of your mat. Toes can point down towards the end of the mat, so your feet are wider than your hips. Your knees may be knocking together. Totally okay. You're just going to drop your knees over towards the right side and let them come down to or towards the earth. Now, if this feels like, your legs are too floating up in the air, you can always use the blanket to just kind of prop the legs up. But here, go ahead and take your hands behind your head and take a deep breath. If you want to yawn or stretch, feel free to. But let that left knee drop in towards the midline. So you're stretching into the outer line of your left leg. And then go ahead and come back through center. And we're just going to switch sides. Keep your feet in the same place and drop your knees over towards the left. And really where you're looking to kind of feel this is into the outside edge of the right leg, so the leg that's moving towards your midline, not the one that's off to the left side. And let your breath come in and out. See if you can release any holding. And then go ahead and come back into center. Walk your feet back in towards the midline. And now we're going to just pick up that right foot and cross it over the left leg. Take your hands out from behind your head, and you're just going to pick up that left foot and reach down, maybe grab the sides of your pant leg, maybe grab the back of your thigh. And here, just start by kind of rocking left and right. Again, working into that IT band, outer hip. If you'd like, you can press that right elbow into the right inner thigh if your hands are behind your left thigh, and kind of press it out. And then go ahead and release and switch sides. So you're just going to pick up that left foot, cross it over your right knee, pick up that right foot, interlace your fingers behind your right thigh or grab hold of the right pant leg. And once again, just rock back and forth. If you'd like to press that left elbow into the left thigh, feel free. I have to say, with how tight my legs are, I'm not sure I could do like a standard lay on the floor pigeon right now. And then once you've taken a few moments just to rock, go ahead, release that right foot back down, uncross the left leg. And what we're going to do now is just pick up that right foot and you're going to thread it between the back of your left heel and the back of your left glute. So you're just going to thread it underneath, let that right knee come down off to the side. If this is enough, if you're feeling enough of a stretch into the front of that right hip and the outer side of that right leg, stay here. If you want a little bit more, reach down, maybe see if you can find the right toes with your left hand, and then take your right arm behind your head and lift the elbow up towards the top of the mat. Maybe curve your body over towards the left side. So you feel this stretch from the tip of your elbow down to the outer edge of your hip, outer edge of your thigh. Take a couple of breaths here. And this is where I really like having the blanket support here because it actually kind of reduces the range a little bit. It can take some of the pressure out. If you are feeling really open and you want to take the blanket out from underneath your head, feel free to do so. And just take a couple of breaths. And then go ahead and release the grip of those toes. You can unwind, draw the head back towards center. Take your knees together, let your feet kind of go wide. Take a moment, notice how you feel. Notice sort of that rush that comes in on the right side. And then we're going to switch. So you're going to pick up your left foot, thread it behind your right heel and below your left glute, and your right glute, and you're going to let that left knee come down out to the outside. Now, I'm a lot tighter on this side, so I may not actually take some of the deeper stretches, but if you want to, feel free to. You're going to take your right hand down towards your left toes, see if you can grab hold. And then if you like, you can take your left elbow, reach it towards the sky. So your left hand is behind your head. You're reaching up through that left elbow. Take a couple of breaths. And then go ahead and release the grip of the toes, unwind, shift your hips back towards center, let your knees knock towards one another. Take a moment. Maybe close your eyes or soften your gaze. Just notice, once again, what the difference is. Notice if there is any difference. And then one last thing before we come into our Shavasana, just take your knees into your chest, and we're going to take just a couple of little rock and rolls along the low back. So you can rock from side to side, which is actually feeling pretty good in my body. If you're feeling a little bit more active, you can take a couple of nice rolls lengthwise on the spine, so coming up to sit, and then letting the back kind of fall. So whichever shape you've decided to take, feel free to just take a moment and kind of explore. And then when you're ready, go ahead and take a deep breath in. And on your exhale, let your legs come out long. Your hands rest on your belly or your chest. Maybe close your eyes or soften your gaze and just land where you are. Let your breath come in and out with an evenness. Allow the back body to just kind of soften down. Let your legs just kind of flop out to the side. If you need to stretch before you settle in, feel free. But once you come to rest, just gently let the body release down into the mat. And take a few deep breaths here, just letting all of that movement, all of that opening kind of settle into the body. And then when you're ready, just slowly begin to deepen your breath. And invite waves of movement back into your system. Roll your wrists, roll your ankles, point and flex your toes. Take a nice long good morning stretch. And then when you're ready, roll over to the left or right side, whichever side serves you best. And then slowly roll your chest more towards the earth and press down to sit up. Find your easy seat. And once you've found your easy seat, gently bring your hands to heart center. Let your thumbs rest against your sternum as you feel those hands connect to your chest. Feel your chest lift back up into your hands. And bow your head towards your heart. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste. How are you feeling, Miss Deb? Much better. My legs are so tight. It's insane. They have been like, I don't know. I haven't done any of that kind of leg stretching in a really long time. Good. What do you have on the docket today? Oh, hey. Oh, God. You should see the room I'm in right now. My yoga room is like covered in dog fur. We finally, our robot vacuum came, but we haven't set it up because we need to vacuum before we set it up. Yep. Yeah. she had borrowed your yoga blanket